Hi dear students, welcome to Geeta's classes. So all of you have written discrete mathematics exam for JNTUH and now I am going to solve the paper. So that it will be useful for you. You can check whether you have written correctly or not. You can verify the answers with my answers. And I am going to write all the 8 question paper. And one more thing, we will check how much time it is going to take. I am going to write all the questions, all the 8 questions and with answers. Okay. So let us check. So first question 1A. Question is not of show that not of P R not P and Q and not P and not Q are equivalent. This is what is the question. Not of PR, not P and Q and not P and not Q are equivalent. Okay, let us check. First, you can prove this in two different ways. Both the answers I will write. Using equivalence method and using the table also you can write. So not of, let us consider the first one, lot of PR, not P and Q is equivalent to not P and PR, not P and not Q. So I am going to take this not inside using De Morgan's law. So not PR, not of not P and Q. Okay, this not I am going to take inside using De Morgan's law. Okay, so this is equivalent to not P and you take again you apply De Morgan's law. So negation twice it will become P, not of not P or not Q, right? Again De Morgan's law only. So this is equivalent to not P and now you have two different connectives, that is and R. So you have to apply distributive law. So not P and P or not P and not Q. I have explained in the classes how to apply distributive law. Not P you have to apply this with the first variable and the second variable, and whatever is inside in the bracket middle, that will be there in the middle also. So here I have applied distributive law. So what is not P and P? It is false. It is a contradiction, right? So F R not P and not Q. So this is a contradiction and F or P is P, we know. So not P and not Q. Not P and not Q, this is what we want. Okay, this is equivalent to not P and not Q using the equivalence. Okay, now I am going to do with table also. We have two variables, therefore P and Q. So T, there are two variables, therefore T, F, and F. Okay, then not P, then whatever we want we can write. This is small q will write because in the question it is small q only. So not P, not Q we want, then not P and not Q. This is one side, and we want not P and Q, that is inside the brackets, then PR not P or Q. Now we want negation of this. negation of PR, not PR. Sorry, here it is and, not R. Not P. What is and or R? And only. Not P and Q. Yeah. So here again you will be getting and only. Okay. So not P means F, F, T, T. And not Q, F, T, F, T. So not P and not Q. And between these two. So F, 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 T. What about not P and Q? Not P and Q. These two. Not P and Q. These two. And between these two. So this is F, F, T, F. And P R, not P and Q. So P R, R between this column and this column. P R, not Q. So R between these two. So T, T, then T, F. Now negation of this column, that is F, F, F and T. Okay. So now from this column 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is 6, 7, 8. So from columns 5 and 8, we get, they are equivalent. Okay. Not P and, not of P R, not P and Q, and not P and not Q are equivalent. So any one is enough. If you have written with the truth table also, you will get full marks. Even with without truth tables, if you write like this also, you will get full marks. Any one is enough, not both. So let us see 1B. 1B question is not of P and Q. Show that not of P and Q, comma, not Q or R, then not R implies not P. So this is our H1, H2, H3. These are the premises and this is the conclusion, not P. Okay. So what we have to do, first you have to include the, introduce all the premises. So first step, using in the theory of inference we have seen. So first one, introduce the first premise P and Q. This is, I am introducing a premise, so it is rule P. Okay. So now this can be written as not P or not Q. This is rule T. I am using De Morgan's law. Which step? In step number 1, I have applied De Morgan's law. So next one, you introduce this not Q or R. This is, I am introducing a premise, so it is rule P, and this is Q conditional R. This is rule T. I am using a formula. In which step? 3. Step number 3, I am using a formula, equivalences. Always I ask you to remember P conditional Q can be written as not P or Q. Okay. This is the equivalence, important equivalence, always we use very frequently. So now introduce not R. I am introducing a premise, so rule P. Next one is, now not R and Q conditional R will become not Q. This is rule T. Then I have applied from in steps 5, 4, I12. Okay, I12. Then next one is not q, and yeah, from this I can write not q and not q or r. Sorry, not p or not q. Not p or not q. From these two, 2 and 6. So rule T. So I have applied from 2 and 6. Step number 6 and 2 in using I9. Okay. So now last step is not Q because using absorption law. So rule T I have applied in rule number step number 7, absorption law. And this is not the only method. Actually, conclusion is given as not P. If anyone knows that you can derive not P also fine. But as far as I know, it is not Q only. Okay, let us see. Let us wait and see for the corrections. Okay. So next is second question. And the first question is for 7 and 8 marks. This is for 7 marks. I will write that also. This is for 8 marks. So second question, prove that for all x, p of x or q of x implies for all x, p of x or there exists x, q of x. For all x here, there exists x, q of x. This is given for 15 marks. And we can prove this using indirect method. We are going to prove this by indirect method. Okay. In this indirect method means what? This is our conclusion. So you have to take negation of C. This is our conclusion. This is the only premise. Okay. So in the indirect method, you have to take negation of C as an additional premise. Then you have to prove a contradiction. You have to arrive at a contradiction. So first step number 1, I am taking negation of C as an additional premise. So negation of for all x, p of x or there exists x, q of x negation of this. This I am introducing actually rule P, but you have, this is not the given given premise. So it is an additional premise. So you have to write this as additional premise. So next step number 2, take the negation inside. So negation of for all x, p of x and negation of there exists x, q of x. So using rule T, in step number 1 I have applied De Morgan's law. Okay. Then next is, now P and Q implies P and Q implies Q. This is rule simplification. Okay. So this is not of for all x, p of x. I can write both not of there exists x, q of x. Both are rule T only. Yeah, I have applied in step number 2. Both I have applied in step number 2. This is called simplification. Okay. Then next is there exists x. Now you apply this for all x. Now negation of, in step number 3 you apply this negation, that is for all will become, when you apply this will become there exists not of P of X, right? Now I have applied rule T. You have taken the negation inside. So in step number 3, I have applied the negation. Similarly, next step is this there exists will become for all X, negation of Q of X, rule T. Again negation. In step number 4, this is step number 4, negation. Okay. Next step is, now there exists X not of P of X means this implies P of A. At least one variable is there for X which can be assigned to X that is not of P of X. That means I am taking at least one element not of P of A. What is this existential specification? Do you remember? If this is exist, there exists, and we can prove this. This is called rule ES, existential specification, and I have applied in step number 5. Okay. Then step number 8, the other one, next one, 6th. For all X not of Q of X, we can write it as not of Q of A. It is true for all, therefore. Now which rule? Rule US. And I have applied in step number 6. Rule US, that is universal specification. So next step is not of P of A and not of P of Q. Not of Q of A, sorry. Not of P of A and not of Q of A. That is, I have applied rule I9, conjunction. Okay. So rule T, it is a formula. So rule T. And I have applied in step number 7 and 8, I9. I9 is conjunction. Okay. This can be written as, now you take negation outside, what will happen using De Morgan's law, P of A or Q of A. Okay, using, again I am applying a formula. So I have applied in step number 9, it is De Morgan's law. So 11. Now for at least one variable we have written, therefore and now I am going to introduce the other premise. Now for all X, P of X or Q of X. For all X, I am introducing the other premise, given premise, for all X, P of X or Q of X. For all X, P of X or Q of X is rule P. I am introducing the given premise now. Okay. Then from this I can write that P of A or Q of A. Right. This is rule T. A rule universal specification. From this I am writing for one element. So this is a rule universal specification from step number 11. Now you observe P of A or Q of A I have, and negation of P of A or Q of A I have in 10. So we can write it as from 12 and 11, 10. So P of A or Q of A and negation of P of A or Q of A. This is again a formula, rule T and I9. I have applied in which steps? 12 and 10. 12, 10. I have applied I9, conjunction. What is this? This is a formula and its negation, which is a contradiction. This is a contradiction. Or you can write false also here. Last step 14. It is false. Therefore, contradiction. Therefore, what we have assumed is wrong. What we have assumed actually, negation of the conclusion. Okay, negation C we have taken and we have arrived at a contradiction. Therefore, it follows from the given though. So you can write the given question. Therefore, for all x p of x q or q of x, therefore for all x p of x or q of x implies for all x p of x or there exists x q of x. Okay. Next question. We have completed second question, right? Next is 3. Question number 3. Show that congruence modulo m is an equivalence relation on integers. Show that question number 3 is show that congruence modulo. For this you should know what is congruence modulo m. Congruence modulo m is an equivalence relation on integers. This is for 15 marks. Actually, the question is very, very easy. If you know all these things, the question will be very easy actually. Now, congruence is an equivalence relation we have to prove. Equivalence relation means what? You have to prove that first condition it should be reflexive. And second condition it should be symmetric. And third you have to prove that it is transitive. So reflexive means for all x comma x, for all x comma x is related to x. X is related to x for all x in the set. And symmetric means x is related to y means y should be related to x. X related to y implies y related to x. Here x is related to y and y is related to z implies x is related to z. This is transitive. All these three conditions we have to. So first of all, let me define what is congruence. So congruence definition I will give you. After that we can prove that it is a equivalence relation. If A and B are integers and m is a positive integer, then A is said to be congruent to B. A is said to be congruent to B modulo m if A minus B is a multiple of B, multiple of m. A minus B is a multiple of m, or we say that m divides A minus B. Okay, that is denoted by A is congruent to B mod m. So we have to prove that this is an equivalence relation. So let us see first one. First one we have to prove that it is reflexive. You know that A is congruent to A mod m. When will you say that A is congruent to A mod m? Because A minus A is 0, right? Since A minus A is equal to 0 is divisible by m. 0 is, you can say that it is divisible by m. It is obvious, isn't it? Therefore, the congruence relation is reflexive. I am literally writing because how much time it is going to take, that also let us check. Okay, so second one, when A is congruent to B mod m, when it is given, what do you mean by this? A minus B is a multiple of m, right? A multiple of m. If a minus b is a multiple of m, can you say that b minus a is a multiple of m? Isn't it? If you say that 6 is a multiple of 2, minus 6 is also multiple of 2, right? Therefore, a minus b means b minus a is also multiple of m. That means what? B is congruent to a mod m. So for all the integers, for all a and a comma b, it is true for all a comma b in the set of integers. Okay. Therefore, congruence relation is symmetric. Then third one, let us assume that transitive. You have to prove that it is transitive. Let us assume that A is congruent to B mod m and B is congruent to C. That implies what? A is congruent to C mod m. Therefore, we have proved that A is congruent to B mod m and B is congruent to C mod m, implies A is congruent to C mod m. Therefore, the relation is, the congruence relation is transitive. Okay. And hence, we have proved all the three relations. Therefore, you can conclude that it is an equivalence relation. Hence, it is an equivalence relation. Okay. Next is question number 4a. What is 4a? A is a relation or on a set A is symmetric if and only if R is equal to R inverse. So this is for 7 marks. So assume that now we have to prove both the sides. First let us assume A is symmetric. Then we'll prove that R is equal to R inverse. Then assume that R is equal to R inverse. Then we'll prove that R is symmetric. Okay. So if part and only if part we'll write. So only if part. So first let us assume that R is symmetric. So to prove that R is equal to R inverse. So what we are going to prove is R is a subset of R inverse. That is to prove that R is a subset of R inverse and R inverse is a subset of R. Then it will become equal. Okay, both of them will become equal. So let us assume that let us consider this element from A. Let x comma y, assume one element x comma y which belongs to R. This implies what? Y comma x is. What do you know? R is symmetric. Okay, it is assumed that R is symmetric. So if x comma y belongs to R, we know that y comma x is R, since R is symmetric. So this is equal to, this implies x comma y belongs to R inverse. Okay. So by definition of inverse. This implies R is, so we have taken one element from R, xy belongs to R, and we have proved that x comma y belongs to R inverse. That implies R is a subset of R inverse. Okay. and R inverse is existing. It is assumed. Here it is given. Okay. So next B. Let us assume that you take one element from R inverse. X comma Y belongs to R inverse. This implies from X comma Y belongs to R inverse means what? Y comma X belongs to R. Right? Because inverse. Y comma X belongs to R. By definition of inverse. This implies X comma Y belongs to R because we know that R is assumed that R is symmetric. We know that it is symmetric. Therefore, R inverse is a subset of R. So let us take this equation number 1 and this as equation number 2. So from 1 and 2, R is equal to R inverse. So one side is proved. Okay. So let this be equation number 3. Or we'll write again. So if R is symmetric, that is the first part we have proved. If R is symmetric, therefore if R is symmetric, R is equal to R inverse. Okay, let this be equation number 3. Now second part we have to prove. Let R is equal to R inverse to prove that R is symmetric. Right? That is, assume that R is equal to R inverse. So to prove R is symmetric means what? We have to take for all X comma Y in the set A, from A, if X comma Y is in R, you have to prove that implies Y comma X is in R. This is what we have to prove. Okay. So very simple. Let X comma Y be an arbitrary member of R. Let X comma Y belongs to R. Take some element from R. What do you know about this? Now we know that R is equal to R inverse. That means X comma Y belongs to R inverse. Since you write the reason, because R is equal to R inverse. Okay. So by the definition of R inverse, what do you know about this? This X comma Y belongs to R inverse means Y comma S belongs to R by inverse definition. Therefore, R is symmetric. Therefore, R is equal to R inverse implies R is symmetric. This is equation number 4. So, from 3 and 4, R is symmetric if and only if R is equal to R inverse. Right? So, hence proved. This is question number 4. A and B. Sorry, A is over. 4B we have to write. 4B. Question is a relation R on A. A relation R on A is reflexive if and only if R inverse is reflexive. Very simple actually. This is 8 marks. Sometimes I think this may be given 7 marks and the previous question may be given 8 marks. Okay. Or this one will be 8. I don't know how they are going to give. So let R be a binary relation. R be a binary relation which is reflexive. Actually, this is easier than the previous question because that means what? Therefore, for all X, we know that X comma X belongs to R. This implies X comma X, because if you have X comma Y belongs to R, what will you write? Y comma X belongs to R inverse, we write by definition of inverse. So here both are x only. So x comma x belongs to R inverse also, right? R inverse by definition of inverse. Okay. This implies for all x comma x belongs to R inverse. Therefore, R inverse is reflexive. Similarly, if you take x comma x belongs to R inverse, that implies x comma x belongs to R. Okay. Therefore, if R is reflexive, R inverse is reflexive. This implies if R inverse is reflexive, R is reflexive. Therefore, combining both, R is reflexive if and only if R inverse is reflexive. You have to write the steps properly, that's all. Okay. So 4B is over. Next, fifth question. Fifth also, in induction I have given one example. The same question and means the same type we got. So fifth question is prove that prove by mathematical induction. Prove by mathematical induction prove by mathematical induction 6 power n plus 2 plus 7 power 2n plus 1 is divisible by 43 for each positive integer n. For each positive integer n. So let us take Sn is the statement. 6 power n plus 2 plus 7 power 2n plus 1 is divisible by 43. Is our Sn. You can prove either for n is equal to 0 or n is equal to 0. I will do both, but you in the exam you can write only one is enough. So if n is equal to 0, what will happen? 6 power 2, right? Plus 7 power 1, that is 36 plus 7, which is 43. Therefore divisible by 43. Suppose when n is equal to 1, okay, or either 0 you can prove or n is equal to 1 you can prove. Then S of 1 is equal to, this is S of 0. So S of 1 is, what will you get when you substitute n is equal to 1? 6 power 3, right? n plus 1 plus 7 power 1, 2 plus 3, so 7 cube. That is 216 plus 343, 343. The answer is 559. You can check, it is also divisible by 43. Divisible by 43. Okay. Therefore, basic step is done. Basic step is true. Either you can say S of 0 or S of 1. Okay. So both need not write, only one is enough. So assume that S of k is true. Assume that S of k is true. That is 6 power k plus 2. 6 power n plus 2, right? So k plus 2 plus 7 power 2k plus 1 is divisible by 43. Divisible by 43. Therefore, this is our induction hypothesis. Induction hypothesis. Now, you have to prove that S of k plus 1 is divisible by S of k plus 1 is true. That is to prove that 6 power, in the place of k you should have k plus 1, that is 6 power k plus 1 plus 2, so k plus 3 plus 7 power 2 into k plus 1 plus 1, right? That is 2k plus 2 plus 1, that is 2k plus 3 is true, is divisible by 43. Divisible by 43. You have to prove that this is divisible by 43. Now consider this term. Consider 6 power k plus 3 plus 7 power 2k plus 3. If you consider this, now we know, what do you know, that 6 power k plus 2 plus this term is divisible by k 43. Okay. So try to write this in terms of this term plus something into 43. You have to express like that. So what I am going to do is 6 power k plus 2 into 6. 1 6 I am taking it outside. So 6 power k plus 2 into, actually 6 power k plus 3 can be written as 6 power k plus 2 plus 1. Okay. Or 6 power 1 into 6 power k plus 2. This is what I am going to split like this. Okay. So in the first term I have 6 power 1 plus, I want 6 power k plus 1. So 7 squared into 7 power 2k plus 1. This 2k plus 3 I have. So 7 squared I am taking it outside. That is equal to 6 into 6 power k plus 2 plus 49 into 7 power 2k plus 1. Right? This 49 I am going to split it as 6 into 6 power k plus 2 plus this 49 I am going to split it as 6 plus 43. Okay, so 6 into 7 power 2k plus 1 plus 43 into 7 power 2k plus 1. So from the first two terms I can take 6 outside. So 6 into 6 power k plus 2 plus 7 power 2k plus 1 plus 43 into 7 power 2k plus 1. Right? So what do you know, this term by induction hypothesis, this term is divisible by 43. So first term is divisible by 43. How do you know that? By induction hypothesis. By induction hypothesis, we know that the first term is divisible by 43 and second term is a multiple of 43. 43 into something, right? So second term is a multiple of 43 and hence divisible by 43 and hence divisible by 43. Therefore their sum is also divisible by 43. Therefore what we have assumed, s of k plus k we have assumed. Now we have proved that s of k plus 1 is true. That is, the inductive step is true. Hence we can say that s of n is true for all n. That is 6 power k plus 2, 6 power n plus 2 plus 7 power 2n plus 1 is divisible by 43. Okay. So next is sixth one. It is a Fibonacci sequence. Already we have done in the class. The same thing I have done in the class also. So prove that, the sixth question is prove that if Fn is the nth Fibonacci number, that is the nth term, that is the meaning, okay, number, then Fn is equal to 1 by root 5 into 1 plus root 5 divided by 2. Actually they have given n plus 1. I will get n only in this. So minus 1 minus root 5 divided by 2 the whole power n. I think you can write minus n plus 1 also. N plus 1 for all. This is a question. I'll write the question as it is. For all integers n greater than or equal to 0. So we know that if you substitute n is equal to 0, you will get initial condition. If you, okay, generally we know that you write the recurrence relation first. We know that Fn is equal to Fn minus 1 plus Fn minus 2. This is the recurrence relation of Fibonacci number. Because they have mentioned it is a Fibonacci number, you need not substitute and all. Okay, no need to find out F0 and all. We know that Fn plus 1 plus Fn plus 2 with the initial conditions F0 is equal to 0 and F1 is equal to 1. Okay, these are the initial conditions. This you have to write. This is the definition of Fibonacci sequence. Recurrence relation definition. This is the recurrence relation for Fibonacci number. Okay. So we know that this is equation number 1. Now we are going to solve this using the recurrence relation method. So we can bring everything to the left hand side. That is Fn minus 1 minus Fn minus 2 is equal to 0. This is the recurrence relation of order. Of order what? N, and difference between n and n minus 2. So order 2. Therefore, what is the characteristic equation? What is the characteristic equation of this recurrence relation? What is the recurrence relation? I will write it again. Fn minus 1 minus Fn minus 2. Right? Is equal to 0. This is equation number 1 with F0 is equal to 0 and F1 is equal to 1. So this is of order 2. Therefore, the characteristic equation is r squared minus r minus 1 is equal to 0. You don't have a value satisfying this, so you have to solve for r. Minus b, that is plus 1 plus r minus root of minus b the whole minus b squared. B squared is plus 1, then minus 4. So here you have one minus, therefore it will be 4. Okay. Divided by 2a, that is 1 plus or minus root 5 divided by 2. Right? Now, what is the solution now? Therefore, because they are 1 plus root 5 by 2, you can write it as 1 plus root 5 by 2 and 1 minus root 5 by 2. So, therefore, an is equal to, here an is Fn. Therefore, Fn is equal to B1, two constants, you have two different numbers. So, two constants you will have 1 plus root 5 divided by 2 the whole power n plus B2 into 1 minus root 5 by 2 the whole power n. Okay. Then now we know that F0 is 0. That implies B1 into something per 0 which is 1 plus B2 into this term per 0, again it will be, so the value is 0. Therefore, you can write B2 as B minus B1 from this. Now, we know that F1 is equal to 1. That implies B1 into 1 plus root 5 by 2 the whole power 1 plus B2 into 1 minus root 5 by 2 the whole power 1 is equal to 1. Okay. Now, you simplify this 2. This 2 you bring it to the right hand side. Therefore, you will be getting 1 plus 5. So, B1 into 1 plus root 5 plus b2 into b2, I am going to write it as minus b1 into 1 minus root 5 is equal to 2. Because I know b2 is equal to minus 1 from the first relation. Okay. So b1 plus b1 root 5 minus b1 plus b1 root 5 is equal to 2. So b1 and b1 will get cancelled. 2 into b1 into root 5 is equal to 2, implies again 2 will get cancelled, implies b1 is equal to 1 by root 5. Therefore b2 is minus b1, so minus 1 by root 5. Okay, so which is the solution now? This is our solution. Equation number 2 is the solution. Now we have to substitute the values of b1 and b2 in this equation number 2. So substituting b1 and b2 in equation number 2, the solution is b1 is what? 1 by root 5 into 1 plus root 5 by 2 the whole power n minus 1 by root 5 into 1 minus root 5 by 2 the whole power n. Okay, fn is equal to. This is our solution. If you take 1 by root 5 outside, you can write it as 1 plus root 5 by 2 the whole power n minus 1 minus root 5 by 2 the whole power n. So here in the printing mistake you have plus, instead of plus you will have 1 minus, that's all. Okay. Actually even if you write n in the place of n plus 1, nothing will happen. Okay. That's what they may not consider that as a mistake, because it is a small typo. Instead of plus it is minus, that's all. And this is for 15 marks. This is for 15 marks. For 5th I have written, yes, even for mathematical induction this is also 15 marks. 5th and 6th questions are for 15 marks. Next is 7th questions. 7th is also for 15 marks. Solve very simple question, and I always told you, no, in recurrence relation direct questions will come. This is very easy question. an minus an minus 1 minus 12 an minus 2 is equal to 0. This is again for 15 marks. Solve the recurrence relation, right? Solve the recurrence relation. With a1, a0 is equal to 0, a1 is equal to 1. So what is the equation? An given recurrence relation is an minus 1 minus 12 an minus 2 is equal to 0. This is of order 2. Therefore, let an is equal to r per n be the solution. Then r squared, the characteristic equation. You have to write the characteristic equation. The characteristic equation is r squared minus r minus 12 an minus 1. So equal to 0. So what are the values? Implies r is equal to 4 comma minus 3. This is r minus 4 plus r minus 4 into r plus 3 is equal to 0. Therefore r is equal to 4 comma 3. Therefore the solution is, here it is a homogeneous equation, homogeneous recurrence relation, and for non-homogeneous if you have right hand side some function. Here directly right hand side is 0, therefore it is a homogeneous recurrence relation. Our job will be very easy here. So the solution is an is equal to b1 into 4 power n plus b2 into minus 3 power n. This is our solution. Because initial conditions are given, we have to find out the values of b1 and b2. Okay. So let us write an is equal to b1 into 4 power n plus b2 into minus 3 the whole power n. This is our equation. And what are all the initial conditions given? a0 is equal to 0, a1 is equal to 1, right? So a0 is equal to 0 implies b1 into 4 power 0, which is 1, plus b2 into minus 3 the whole power 0, which is also 1. So b1 is equal to b2. B1 plus b2 is equal to 0, implies b2 is equal to minus b1. From this we are going to apply in the next one. So a1 is equal to 1, right? a1 is 1 given. So if you substitute here, n is equal to 1, b1 into 4 power 1 plus b2 into minus 3 the whole power 1 is equal to a1, which is 1. That is 4b1 minus 3b2 is equal to 1. Now you substitute b2 is equal to minus b1 here, implies 4b1 plus 3b1 is equal to 1, implies 7b1 is equal to 1, implies b1 is equal to 1 by 7. Because b1 is equal to 1 by 7, b2 is equal to minus 1 by 7. So substituting in the solution 1, in equation 1 we get the solution is, solution of the given recurrence relation is an is equal to 1 by 7 into 4 power n minus 1 by 7 into minus 3 the whole power n. Very easy. See, only 2 pages, maximum of 8-9 steps, that's all. This is for 15 marks. Then 8a, fundamental theorem of graph theory. It is also called handshaking theorem. State and prove fundamental theorem of graph theory, right? That is the question. State and prove fundamental theorem of graph theory. State and prove fundamental theorem of graph theory. Fundamental theorem of graph theory. See, not even 1 hour over, now I have come to 8a. Okay, this is for 7 marks. 7 plus 8 they have mentioned. Sometimes it may be, I think it may be 8 plus 7 also, depending on the question they may decide. Okay, so what is the statement? What is the statement? If you have a graph, for any graph, number of degrees, sum of the degrees will be equal to twice the edges, number of edges. That is our theorem. Okay, so if G of V comma E is an undirected graph, with E edges, then sigma I degree of Vi is equal to twice the number of edges. That is, the sum of the degrees. The statement also you have to write properly. Degrees of all the vertices of an undirected graph is twice the number of edges of the graph and hence even, because twice no, so it will become automatically even and hence even. So let us prove that. Proof is also very simple proof. If you want, you can give some example also, but not required. So only thing is you have to write like this. See, suppose if you have a graph here, E1, E2. If you consider, see, if you have a loop here. So if you consider, this is again E3. If you consider any edge, it is contributing to the sum of the degrees. Sum of the degrees means you have to add degree of A, degree of B, degree of C, right? So E1 is contributing to the sum of degree. You will count 1 for A, 1 for B. If it is a loop, 2 for the vertex. Okay, for that vertex itself you will contribute 2. The edge is contributing 2 degrees. We will count. What is the degree of C now? 3. Okay, we won't say that 2. It is 3 actually. You have to count twice. You are starting and ending with the same vertex C. Okay. So you have to write, elaborately write like this. So since every edge is incident with exactly 2 vertices, every edge contributes to the sum of the degree of the vertices. Sum of the degree of the vertices. Therefore, all the E edges contribute twice E to the sum of the degrees of the vertices. Okay, that is, we know that sigma I, degree of Vi, is equal to twice the number of edges. Hence the proof. That's all. Then 8b. What is the question? 8b. K4, the complete graph. Prove that a complete graph Kn is planar if and only if n less than or equal to 4. Okay, less than or equal to 4. So here you can show that up to 4 it is planar. I will show that K1 is a K2. K1 is only single vertex. K2 is, this is K2. K3 is like this. K3 is planar. What is a planar graph? You should write the definition of planar graph also here. What is a planar graph? You should be able to write, draw the graph on a plane without crossovers. Okay, a graph is planar if it is possible to draw the graph on a plane without crossovers. One second. So it is possible to draw a graph on a plane without crossovers. So K2, K3, K4. K4 is also a planar graph. This we can prove. This already I have explained. Okay. So K2, K3 and K4. K2 is planar, K3 is planar, K4 is also planar. Now we have to check whether K5 is planar or not. I have proved that K5 is not planar, but in general you cannot just write like that. We have a corollary. I have proved that Euler's formula. Euler's formula. There is a corollary for this Euler's formula. Corollary to Euler's formula. For the region, we have proved this. So from this we know that E is less than or equal to 3V minus 6. That is, you have to write this corollary, sorry. The corollary goes like this. If G is a connected planar, if G is a connected planar simple graph, connected planar simple graph with E edges and V vertices with V greater than or equal to 3, then E is less than or equal to 3V minus 6. Okay, this is the proof. This is a corollary to our Euler's formula. One second. In Euler's formula, we have proved that V minus E, Euler's formula says that if you have a connected graph, then V minus E plus R is equal to 2. This is the formula, and this is a corollary to the formula. Okay. So using this, you can prove that if you consider K5, how many vertices you will have? I'll show you what is K5. See. This is complete graph, right? This is our K5. So how many vertices are there? 5 vertices are there. The graph K5 has 5 vertices and 10 edges. Now, is it satisfying this corollary? E should be less than or equal to 3. If it is a connected planar graph, then it should satisfy E less than or equal to 3V minus 6. But this K5 will not satisfy. K5 onwards, it will not satisfy. Okay. So, for this, E is equal to now 3V minus 6. Now, this is E is 10. Number of edges is 10. What about 3V minus 6? 3 into 5 minus 6. Which is 9. Therefore, we are getting E. This is not satisfied. E is not less than or equal to, or the condition is not satisfied, you can say. Therefore, the condition is not satisfied. Condition E less than or equal to 3V minus 6 is not satisfied. Hence, it is not planar. This is for 8 marks. The first one is for 7 marks. Kn less than only for less than or equal to 4. So 5 onwards it will not satisfy. Okay. So only for less than or equal to 4 it is satisfying this. So with this it is over. I hope it will be useful for checking whether you have written correctly or not. Okay. Please check the answers and give your feedback. And hope I pray that everyone should clear DM. Okay. And thank you and all the best. Thank you so much for listening.